Welcome back, you guys, to another episode. I am so excited for us to dive into this week's episode. Before I get into our guest, I just want to share what's been coming up and on my heart and mind lately is really evaluating more deeply my personal sovereignty, my relationships, which I've always felt really good in, right? It's not that I feel bad in these places. I've had experiences that I've wanted to grow deeper in. I've started to notice certain patterns for myself that I'm really ready to evolve into a new season with, into something different, something more balanced and honoring of where my soul is at now. Even though things have been really beautiful, there's certain places that we create block-ins still in certain ways of really expanding and unlocking in our own bigness and like our whole self that's lit up and just super present in the world. And so, of course, as the universe does, when I set this intention and I started really unlocking this for myself, I connected paths with the most incredible woman, the most incredible teacher and soul sister. And so I am super excited and honored to have her here on the podcast. Diana Eskander is joining us in today's episode. Diana's a love and relationship mentor and the founder of School of Love. She's supported hundreds of women and people worldwide really tap into their deepest love, their deepest, healthiest relationship to self and with partners and with money. And of course, we love this. She's also been recognized as a top love coach by Yahoo, has been a TEDx speaker and featured globally. So she's really this go-to incredible woman. And you guys, this woman, her energy is so potent and beautiful. And the things that we dive into in this conversation, you're going to want to come back and you're going to want to really set an intention for activation with this because there's going to be nuggets and frequency behind the words that are spoken that really up level for you, whatever you are calling in, whether it's in relationships or not. Use this as an opportunity to more deeply dive into subtle nuances with where you want to be next. Those really deep, honoring, beautiful places. So I'm not going to make us wait any longer. Let's dive in. Welcome to In the Calm. I'm your host, Georgiana Alexander. Welcome to In the Calm. I am so unbelievably excited to have you here. Before I get into all the many things that I want to share with everyone, I do want to give your accreditation. You are a love and relationship mentor and coach, the founder of School of Love. You're top named Love Coach by Yahoo, an accredited mentor, a TEDx speaker, an intuitive healer, which I could have guessed. I think we had a conversation like, so are you tapped into? And duh, of course you are, right? But you've been working with hundreds of women over the past 11 years in love mastery and in healing relationships and really calling them forward into their feminine awakening. And you guys, the work that this incredible woman is doing, like what is felt, the frequency of it is so mind-blowing. And it's just incredible to get to have you here and to get to dive into all of the nuances of the conversation that I know we're getting into. So welcome, Diana.
Thank you for this gorgeous introduction. I'm so happy to be here.
You shared with me some of your work. I got to experience this firsthand with your Self-Centered Woman program. Wow. I left you some messages about the impact that it was having as I'm listening through and experiencing your work. And I knew from the moment that I saw you, I was just like, oh my goodness, this woman, her light, her frequency, like, yes, I have to know your work. I have to connect to you. But going through this program, so many pieces started aligning and unlocking for me around sovereignty and what that looks like and means. Let's start there. Let's get into this work and nuance of sovereignty.
Oh, I love Oh, the concept of sovereignty for me is truly, it's the core of it all. Because when I can feel my true power through my choice, through seeing like the part I play in my life, the part that isn't mine too. So I'll just, I'll start with what sovereignty means to me is really like ownership. It's radical, radical ownership, but it isn't gaslighting yourself and it isn't taking on what's on someone else's side of the street. It is, though, like owning that, oh, when I see that I have power in this situation, I see that I'm not a victim. And I, through the years, have seen how subtle victimhood can be. And even in, women that I work with who are like, oh, I'm so good at, I'm so self aware and I'm so good at ownership and responsibility. And still there is this like subtle, sneaky energy of something's happening to me, or it's not fair, or it doesn't work out for me the way it works out for others. And when we can really recognize where that exists and how that shows up in the way we think, in the way we move through the world, in the way we speak, we can start to really like reclaim the power that we've allowed to be leaked out in this subtle belief that we're not sovereign in who we get to be in this life. And of course, it's a holographic image of all of our co-creation, right? Like I can only be sovereign over what's in the outer reflection of my inner world. But then I'm playing with you in your outer reflection and we're kind of co-creating this picture together. Is that a good place to start?
That is such a beautiful place to start. And I think I've shared with you this week, this is something that's been coming up so strongly for me. And I consider myself in a lot of ways a sovereign person. I feel very deeply connected to my soul, purpose, calling, even though I haven't lived it externally. But just lately, it's like I felt like I was wearing the skin of another persona, of another person, that it felt like I was feeling suffocated by. And suddenly, as we start to feel those constraints around us, it's like those are our cues of like, oh, it's time to shift. We're feeling safe now to let go of this. And when I was listening to your conversation around sovereignty, it really activated in me this awareness and sort of this mirrored reflection of like, wow, these are things that I was carrying of other people's projections. And it wasn't their intention to project on me. It was things that I was wearing to feel safe in myself, to dim my own light in physical form so that I would feel safe to not be seen for my gifts, for my power, for my strength. And just recognizing that you can so effortlessly release that as you claim your own sovereignty, all of those pieces just sort of start to fade away and start to move off of you. And how much that shows up when you're talking about co-creating with others. And, you're co-creating with my external, I'm creating with yours. And we get that nice little mix of everybody else's shit that we're like carrying around too. And then we fling it around and dagger that in relationships. And we don't understand why we don't get the love and the partnership. And we don't feel whole in our feminine the way that we desire.
Yeah. And the best way I really know how to get into my sovereign power is really through my body, is like breath and feeling myself arrive in the present, like really rooted and grounded, and starting to create my own inner sense of safety. Because we need to feel safe in our bodies so that the stuff that's there, the sneaky beliefs, the sneaky victimhood, all those subtleties can come to the surface, right? And whenever a woman says to me like, oh, I was doing so well and now there's this new shit coming up and I thought I was over it, I'm like, no, it's time to celebrate. Like, you're safe enough for it to come up now, right? And like, oh my gosh, that's all because of you. Like, you've created enough safety within your body that these new layers can come through so they can be seen, and that you do have now the capacity to see them and be with them. And it isn't you going backwards. There's no such thing. Right. And if we really anchor in the moment now and bringing all of our energy, right, all of the fragmented pieces of us, the part of me that's 6 years old and the part of me that's 3 years old. And I can bring them all into the now and feel myself here and now. It's like when I really remember who I am, how could I ever believe anything other than this is all here for me? And I speak about this too in a way, and I don't know if this always lands with everyone, but when people talk about the universe is doing this, is giving this to me, and it's here for me, and life is supporting me. And I also want to say, and you are life, and you are the universe, and you are God. So actually, it's your inner wisdom creating all these circumstances for you. Like it isn't something outside that you aren't a part of.
I think so many people struggle with that concept as well
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
we hold so much of our identity, our ownership, like what we create, like we see everything externally. We don't realize it originates from internally. And because it's tangible in front of us, we don't realize the unseen is actually just as tangible. Most people haven't attuned their sensory to those subtleties of understanding the tangibility and the unseen.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, I feel that so much. And isn't there like all these new layers that open up when we can tune into that? And there's no end. There's no end to the game. And I love that, right? I love the idea that there's actually only more. And so even if I feel sovereign in this moment, I know, I know that that's only 10% of my power. Like there is no there it's infinite.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And, to circle back to what you're saying, I hear so often with friends or clients or things like that, especially, listening to women and friends and relationships, they're talking about, I've done this work. I,
Yeah.
I, I already healed this. And it's
Right.
almost like a checklist. So like, great, I did this. And so now
Yeah.
that should be done and cleared. But it is like when you can shift that perspective, and I know this is something you and I have talked about, this is something you live and preach in your work deeply as well, is when you can shift the perspective and let it keep unwinding and realize that it's layer and layer of yes, it's challenging. Yes, it's painful, but it's
Mhm.
so liberating and freeing if you
Mhm.
could just sort of lean into the flow
Mhm.
with it and sort of,
Mhm.
it's kind of like childbirthing, right? Like for all
Mhm.
the mamas out there, like
Mhm.
it's not going to do any good to fight that process. It's going to
Yeah.
hurt a
Yeah.
lot more rather than sort of leaning into the goodness of that pain, of that like hurt, for what it's birthing from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, in the context of relationship, it's like when things come up in your relationships and any relationship, really, like, wow, if you can take a moment to go, well, this is definitely here for me. If it's not what I want, then it must be what I need. So this is definitely here for me. And if I can even just start from that place, I eliminate feeling like a victim in any way. And I immediately can start to feel my power because it's like, oh, this is here to show me something. And what is it here to show me? And it might be here to show you it's time to move on from this relationship, or it might be here to show you, oh my, like you are an integral part of this, and like you are also co-creating this dynamic with this person, and here are the ways you do that. Like I
Yes.
remember just having this light bulb moment, well, maybe almost 2 decades ago now, and being like, oh, my boyfriend always is very critical of like the way I look or the way I'm dressing or the way something about the way I appear. And yet I have this funny habit of asking him how I look once I've gotten dressed up. And it's like, oh, how I played right into that. I just walk right into it, right? And then it's like, well, don't comment on how I look, but meanwhile I'm asking you how I look. And it's like this example that I think we can all relate to on some levels. Like I walked right into that, right? And then and it's like, oh, there's my sovereignty. Like maybe don't ask, maybe just own that I feel really proud about the way I've put myself together and I don't need your input on that.
Yes, that's such a great, perfect, and humorous example of like, stepping right into that. Something that you shared that I found to be so powerful, it really struck a deep chord in me. As especially a 3-5 projector, we all love to talk about human design here on the Calm, but oftentimes we're reflecting out our light. And this is another key component of sovereignty of you say, turn the light back inward to you, turn your focus and your energy, even the thoughts. How much time are we spending our thoughts on other people, other things, struggles, the challenges? That's giving away our power. It's giving away our energy source. And then we're wondering why our lives don't look and feel the way we want, what we feel desperate and pulled and tugged and controlled by others. And it's
Mhm.
because we're literally handing them the
Mhm.
cord, much like you're talking about, your ex-partner.
Mhm.
And so I loved that visual. And I would love for you
Mhm.
to go deeper in this of
Yes.
turning that light back in, not to
Yeah.
just reclaim your power, but to shine light on your own gifts so that you can
Yeah.
actually receive your own gifts and come out of the darkness. Like that was such a mind blow. It's like, yes, we know this, but
Right.
the way it's like, but we didn't know this, right?
Yeah. So I really love to play with the visual of when I'm thinking, "Oh, what is this person gonna do? Are they gonna say yes? Are they gonna say no? What's he thinking? What are they what's the next and my focus is out here. It's out here. It's out here. It's what can I get? What can I get someone else to do? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they gonna respond?" And my light is shining out here, right? So there's a spotlight right here and I have it shining. Where does that leave me? It leaves me in the dark. It leaves me unseen. And what I see, I've seen this far too many times, I can't count, is women saying, "But doesn't he see how much I give? Doesn't he see how much I do?" And I'm like, actually, it's because your light is shining so intensely on him that he cannot see you. You've put
Like
yourself in
my
the
mic drop, like
shadow.
mic drop.
Yeah, like you're in the dark, woman. And in the context of man, woman, and masculine, feminine energetics, it's like, actually, he unconsciously doesn't realize it, but all he really wants to see is how you show up for yourself. And that's you turning the light back on yourself turns you on. And everyone feels better in that dynamic. Like with you turned on, turned up, feeling yourself, seeing yourself, others can see you.
Yeah, and I think, we hide behind that as well. Like when we get scared, when again we want to project our feelings of insecurity, when we're not owning our sovereignty, when we're not really stepping into our own embodiment, that's a good hiding place in the darkness. But then we
Mhm.
complain with our right partners, our love, even in
Mhm.
career and in our
Mhm.
lives. Like, you can't play if you're just scared and in the darkness and blaming everyone around you for that. That's such a powerful visual. It just clicked a literal light bulb for me. And I'm like,
Yeah, and even if you're
oh,
not blaming,
right.
sometimes it's not in the form of blame, it's in the form of caring for and thinking about others and preparing for what they might need. It's like, but where are you? And I have mothers ask me a lot, but like, how do you have this space and time for yourself? Because I do have two young ones, and I think that's an important part of the conversation
Mhm.
because I can relate. Like, my daughter is about to turn 3, my son's about to turn 7. Like, they're little, and they do go to like school and for school and daycare, and they do have things they do out of the house, and so of course that helps. Right. But it is the intentionality around like, mommy will get that for you as soon as I'm done eating. And like, yes, I see you. I hear you. You want some more yogurt? I'm going to get that for you. I'm going to finish my meal and then I will get that for you. Or even better, oh my gosh, like you are getting so big and so you're so capable. Maybe you could try making your own snack, your own breakfast, right? And it not being this avoidance of self to pour into others.
Mm, mhm. Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit more deeply because I think so much, especially in the idealized version of our feminine, which I don't think is our strength and our true feminine essence, that we
Mm,
associate with this flowy feminine overgiver,
mm,
overdoer, overachiever, all of the pieces. And really, it so disconnects us from the truth of what we need, who we are, and what we're capable of as mothers, partners, creators. Let's dive into that a little bit more because you speak so beautifully to this.
yeah. I mean, I don't believe the feminine is really anchored in much doing. Although, of course, as a woman or any human, you can play with your feminine energy, indulge in your feminine energy, and still get a lot of things done. But I see a big misconception around nurturing energy being giving and doing. And I actually see it as the complete opposite. So, what's most nurturing for my children is not so much the meals that I make for them, but more so the space that I hold for them and the love, the unconditional love, the non judgment, the soothing, like rapture of my warmth, the laying in my arms and feeling like I'm the person who will love them no matter what. And it requires me to do nothing. And sometimes I'll be in the midst of doing a bunch of things for them. And they're just like, mommy, look, I want to show you the thing I made. And it's this moment of decision of, do I continue doing or do I drop the doing and just be? And all they actually really want is to feel my love and attention and energy. And so the nurturing quality is not the one that's preparing the meal, although I understand that's part of the things that kind of need to get done in life. It is the essence of me loving them. And that's it. It's the essence of my partner feeling like he's safe around me and I'm not judging him or criticizing him. It doesn't actually require me to do anything at all.
Yes. Yes. Okay. And I'd like to go like one step further in
Yeah,
this
here for it.
with, for everyone listening that's like trying to find their way in new relationships or partnerships or things like that. There's so many women that I hear that are dating and they struggle with this identity like, well, I thought it was going so well and then I got ghosted, or it's like it's like this feeling of shutting down their
Yeah.
own love capacity or really
Yeah.
struggling with that. And I think it really does tie into the overgiving over really just again forcing that blinding light as you were talking about towards
Yeah.
another person.
Yeah. I'll often say, like, a woman is unconsciously looking to see how a man shows up for her. And he is unconsciously looking to see how a woman shows up for herself. And
Okay, say that again because it just
yeah,
needs to be it
okay,
just
yeah.
needs to be repeated and like,
Like
oh
a
my
hundred
gosh, you
times over,
guys,
right?
like boom.
End of episode.
Yeah, that was it. That was good. We're done.
A woman unconsciously looks to see how a man shows up for her. I really just want you to feel into that for a moment and feel how true that is. And a man is unconsciously, maybe sometimes consciously, looking to see how she shows up for herself. Because polarity is real. And it is, what makes us the same is what creates compatibility, but what makes us different is what creates chemistry. Right.
Mhm.
And I think that's
Mhm.
important to hear again. Right. So what makes us the same creates compatibility in a relationship, right? So we have similar vision, values, views. What makes us different is what creates the chemistry. And so it's like, well, his focus could be planning a date or, something focused on you. When you are also focused on you, it's like that is the feminine essence. It's like the focus inward, the pouring into yourself and creating kind of this like almost like a yoni, right? Like creating this vortex or this portal for him to enter. But if
Mhm.
my energy is out here, then like, we're just we're just
Way out in
colliding,
front of you. Yes, you're colliding.
right? We're colliding. But when I'm inwardly focused, and obviously I have a number of responsibilities in a day that require me to, like realize what time it is and show up for the call and do the thing I said I do and, pick up my kid's Halloween costume or order the cake for the birthday or all the things, right? But there still is a way of doing that that feels more relaxed, more playful, more in love, more in my joy, more in my pleasure, and in the owning of myself versus like outward, get it done, focused out. And so masculine energy, and I love to refer to masculine energy as men, money, life, wants to feel your standard, rise or fall to meet you at whatever ever standard you hold. And you get to choose.
Right. And what are we choosing? Like when we ask that question. what is it that we're choosing? And oftentimes we're really choosing so much less than what we crave and what we want. And then
Yes.
we feel so disconnected. And by the way, just backing it up, I'm totally surprised that you're not just in your goddess flow all the time. I mean, isn't that funny? Don't we like associate this visual of like, well, if I'm in my feminine, it has to be in this like goddess, like,
No. Yeah.
perspective all the time. But we move in and out of the masculine and feminine. I love that you talk about that as well, about playing in that.
Yeah, and that there's a way, like, some days I'm like, "Whoa, I just got so much stuff done," but that doesn't necessarily mean I've been in my masculine all day. Even if I spent the entire day doing things, it doesn't mean I've been in my masculine all day because there is a relaxed way of doing things that is available for us, right? And so in my enjoyment of making dinner, in my enjoyment of picking up the Halloween costumes, in my enjoyment of, in booking my nail appointment or showing up for a client or asking my team with something, in my excitement, in my gratitude, in my indulgence of it, I am bringing the feminine to the masculine and they are in harmony and union together. And that's where I honestly love to play. So I think for a while we heard about lean back and be in your feminine, just lean back. And I'm actually not a big fan of leaning back because that can also become avoidance. And
Mhm.
and I really want to say, just can we be in our center? And sometimes I'm leaning a little bit more forward and sometimes I'm leaning a little bit more in my relaxed stance, but can I be somewhere in my center?
That feels so good, right? In our conversation of our feminine entrepreneurial roles, like we've heard for years about hustle, boss babe, like hustle culture. And I mean, it's been hustle culture for a long time, right? Because we're talking about the patriarchal like growth and evolution of like business. And now we're moving into the feminine entrepreneurship. We've just removed our 80s style like shoulder pads and
Right.
taken those out, right? We're softening a little. And then now we're going back into this soft CEO, but there it is playful and the balance. And I love the way you dance and play with this. You and I were talking as well about the story that you were telling on another podcast where I was like, oh my God, the way that you manifest is so unique and beautiful, the way that you dance with creation in all areas. And I think that that ties so beautifully into the way that you show up in relationships as well. It is in this dance and it is
Mhm.
in this playful balance. You and I had conversations prior to this about that very, like, just beautiful, beautiful, very distinct and very unique way that you
Mhm.
play with your manifestation. Will you share with us
I
that
would be
dance that
honored.
you
Yeah.
do? Because it's so powerful.
I would be honored. And I don't think I even started to realize the dance I was doing until earlier this year or sometime last year. Timelines kind of collide. I don't always know what day it is or I'll be
Yeah,
like, "It's
same.
Friday, right?" And it's Tuesday. I'm like, "Oh, okay."
We're like, we're in
Um,
2027 at this point, right? Because last Monday was a year. So
exactly. So it was some time ago where I started to realize that I was dancing with it in this way. In relationships, I often hear like, "Oh, but I'm the one who like pushes for change," or like I always have to initiate like let's go on a date or initiate like a new project together, initiate some kind of spark back in the relationship. And I'll be like, okay, what's the problem? Because there is no problem because the feminine is the spark, right? The feminine is the spark. But what happens is then we start doing the spark versus being the spark, right? So I'll say to my husband, I really love to go on a date. So I spark. I don't have to do the whole thing though. I can let him take over the part of the doing and creating the date and making it happen. And then I be in my softness and in my receptivity to then show up and have fun and receive the date and enjoy the date. So when we start to really feel this and own this, and rather than see it as a burden, we see it as a power that I am the spark, but I don't have to do the spark, but I get to be the spark. Then you start to see, oh, this is what's happening in my manifestation. It's like there's a spark of a desire. that drops in. Spark, it's illogical, and your desires will be illogical a lot of the time. That is your feminine coming to play and like turn it up and go, how are we having fun here, right? Like if you've ever heard the saying, keep me safe, I'll keep you wild. To me, it's like the perfect dance of the masculine and the feminine. The masculine keeps you safe, the feminine keeps you wild, right? And my husband does a really good job at keeping us safe. He's logical. He's like, well, have you considered X, Y, and Z? I'm like, no, I have not, because that's not how I operate. And maybe in your paradigm, but in my paradigm, everything's possible. Very. And so,
Yes. Like, don't cramp in my universal like flow here. Okay. Anything can move in
like, no, I don't
microseconds.
know about the mortgage rates and I don't know about that. I just know that it's possible. Okay. So the feminine is very sparky, right? And it can be almost like a little wild and chaotic in nature, but then the masculine, and this is how I manifest, but I didn't realize it for so long. It's like I receive the desire and it's letting it be there and letting it be sparky and letting it light me up. And then the masculine part of the process is it starts to take shape and come into form, right? So it starts to come into reality. And then I imagine it's kind of like in escrow. It's like waiting right here, right? It's
Mhm.
formed, it's ready, it's available. Now I've just got to be open enough for it to come my way, right? Like, okay, let's say I say to my partner, I want to go on a date, and then he plans this thing, but then I'm kind of crunchy and bitter and not really in my flow. And he's like, I don't feel like telling her I had made these beautiful plans for us together because I don't really feel like hanging out with her when she's in this mood. Right. So then I don't receive the thing I've asked for, but it is ready and available and there. It's just waiting for my receptivity. So it's this, if I was to put it in a very linear way, it'd be like feminine spark, masculine form, feminine receiving of the form.
I love this so much because as I've heard your stories and heard the way that you dance, I could see the way that like it's so joyful and playful with you, this spark. And a lot of times when we think about manifestation as it's so trendy and everyone's talking about creation, manifestation, it feels sometimes burdening to people. I
Yeah.
feel like they feel overwhelmed, like, oh, here's my checklist. I have to do all the things, I have to do all the affirmations, I have to, do this vision board. It's not playful. It's not then dancing in between that feminine and the masculine and then opening to actually receiving it. I have an interesting story about that that just kind of came to mind in realization recently that I'll share in
Mm-hmm.
connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I've shared with you that I have had all kinds of interesting, beautiful love partnerships and relationships. I have been a soul that deeply wanted to explore all different possibilities. I need to try
Mm-hmm.
everything out so I could know, okay, well, this part I like about this, and this kind of personality I like about this, and this matches, the whole thing. So
Mm-hmm.
in this journey, I have this beautiful story of magnetizing and attracting my ex-husband when I was
Mm-hmm.
very young. So we actually got married when I was 21. And I saw him coming down the stairs. I was still in a relationship, but I saw him coming down a stair. And I was like, oh my God, this is my person. Like I knew it. I felt it so strongly immediately. And then we didn't connect for a while, right? There was this whole journey. Well, we actually got married and divorced twice. We tried really
Wow.
hard to make
Mm-hmm.
this work. And now we're still friends 30 years later. It took time to alchemize that, right? It wasn't that we were best friends after creating all kinds of hatred and disconnect in one another, but it was the journey that we needed. So that had ended, but my soul was so deeply yearning for a beautiful love and connection. And I had experienced soul love with this partner. It just wasn't a soul love that was meant to be forever. And
Mm-hmm.
what's so incredible is that marriage ended. I sold my house. I moved to Miami and I met a person there that at the time I was very angry and shut down. I was not receptive. I was like flinging my masculine energy and I was like, all I care about is being single and independent and like really flinging that dynamic around. Even though on a soul level, I really did yearn for a beautiful, loving soul relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so fast forward, and that person that I met has been a soul friend for 20 years, and we've been dancing in and out of each other's lives. And as we meet and come closer and I've had other partnerships, and this person has had other partnerships, we have supported one another's journeys and goals, even though we weren't even physically in relationship together. We've been moving the texture of our lives, supporting the dynamic and calling to each other along the journeys on phone and whatnot, in different and soul, like energetically, not even with speaking. And so now as we talk and connect, I realize, and this relationship now in present time, almost 20 years later, that's a whole other story, a whole other journey that is activating and calling me out, like unspoken, calling me out on all the ways I've shut down and blocked myself in all these ways. But in looking backwards, I realized, Diana, I had called in my soul person, regardless of how our partnership comes together. Because
Mhm.
again, my soul yearns for the whole experience. So
Mhm.
hopefully that results in a way that would look ideal as a partnership.
Mhm.
But I don't have
Mhm.
that answer because my soul has its own dance. And I
Mhm.
realize that now. But
Mhm.
what I do get, what I have received is love and
Mhm.
being seen and this calling to more deeper places of myself and like an expansive partner, an expansive friendship that was available to me within less than 6 months of my other soul partnership ending, but I was
Right.
not ready to receive it.
Right. Exactly. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. So if anyone's listening, waiting for their partner, it could just be right there.
Oh,
Everything
actually,
in our lives is literally right here, waiting
it's
to
right
just
here.
be received.
Yeah, like if you ever wondered if your person is around the corner or if, you're waiting for something to happen and you're like, when's the time? I came across this picture from June 3rd, 2013. And I came across this picture probably like a year ago, and I'm holding my friend's baby. I went to visit her new baby. And I'm holding the baby. And I remember so clearly in that season and in that time, like really questioning, will I meet my person? I want to meet my person. I want to have my family, when is it going to happen? And it was just so beautiful to find that picture because 6 days later, I met Jack on a street corner getting into a taxi. And
Oh, I have
11
chills.
years
I
later,
have
here we are
chills.
together, like homes, businesses, properties, children, a whole life together. And it was like I had that version of me sitting in that chair in my friend's living room with her baby at 6 days earlier, could not have known that in 6 days my whole life would change and he would come walking into my world and it would all happen. Right? And so can you just believe, like, it can literally be in 6 days, it could be in 2 days, it could be tomorrow, it could be today.
Yes. Time really does collapse itself to bring things to us. Like it is an ever giving universe that's like just matching and playing and dancing with our desires and our co-creation. And we get so caught up in the timings, and there's such resistance in that, and there's such resistance and shutdowns to our expectations of others, and not really turning that mirror back and seeing where we're not allowing, where we're blocking the receivership. I love that story. That's so beautiful. And that actually guides us so perfectly into a question that I want you to share about. Our topic is about perspectives. You share a beautiful story of how you've learned to really shift the lens of perspective to
Mhm,
see that everything really is working for you, to let it expand us and open it up. And I have lived this way in my own life as well, where every deep hurt, pain, even goodness, right? Like we let
mhm,
all of these experiences, if we
mhm,
shift the lens, crack us open and
mhm,
help guide us into our next chapters. Those could be the tiny, tiny little thing that feels
mhm,
insurmountable right before everything you've ever wanted breaks through,
mhm. Oof, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I love the way that you speak to this perspective and shift.
Where it really began was when my father was in the ICU, and it was at the start of 2023. So we'd just gone on the adventure of a lifetime. So my parents, me, my sister, her partner, my husband, our kids, 3 generations, we all went home to Egypt, and it was my first time back since
Wow.
leaving there when I was 2 years old. And everyone else, well, my partner had never been, my kids had never been, but my sister had been back, my parents had been back, but I had not. And I can't tell you what that month in Egypt with my family was like for me. First of all, they're all my favorite people. So I was like, I'm with my favorite people. I literally need nothing else. And like we're home. And so we're on this high and we get back from our trip and 4 something like that days later, my dad's admitted to the ICU with pneumonia, and it was a very quick spiraling down, and he got septic shock and he was on every form of life support. And it was, that moment of like receiving a call at 2 a.m. being like, you need to get here now. I don't know if your father is going to make it. Waking up the kids and getting in the car, and we're 2 hours from where my parents are. So driving in the middle of the night to arrive and seeing him there hooked up to all the machines. And if you've ever seen someone on a ventilator, or is that what you call it when it's in their throat, it's quite something, and then began the journey of doctors telling us he's not going to make it through the day, and then he's not going to make it through the next hour, and he's not going to make it through this and that, and just start saying goodbye. And my mom and I remember looking at my mom, my sister was on her way flying in from Paris, and I just looked at her and I was like, don't hear them. You don't have to listen to them. They don't know. And we were just praying and praying and praying and praying and praying, like 15 hours of like straight praying. And anyway, he started to turn around over the next few days, but it was still a very, very hard road. And it wasn't, it went on for a few weeks. And I remember a few days into it, we were all at my parents' house. So my dad's in the hospital, unconscious, and we're taking care of my mom and we're visiting my dad. And so my husband's there, our kids are there, my sister's there, her partner's there, and we're living like this little community inside of my parents in my childhood home. And I remember looking at my sister and saying, can I say something that sounds kind of strange? And I was like, this is the hardest thing I've ever been through, but I feel so deeply grateful for it right now. And she was like, I know what you mean. Like the way I'm growing through this, the way we're showing up, like this feeling of being home all together and making meals together. It was like, who's picking up groceries? Who's paying the bills? Who's driving my mom to the hospital? Who's bringing things for my dad? Who's cooking the meal? Who's washing the dishes? Who's putting the kids to bed? Like we were just this well-oiled machine, everybody taking care of something. And it was like, wow, I can't quite put it into words, but I remember having this feeling of the hard moments are not the contraction that you have to withstand to get to the expansion. The hard moment is the expansion. And of course, the good moments are also the expansion. I want to be very clear about that. But what that started to open up for me was that, oh my God, wait, there's no such thing as a contraction. We hear this idea of like, allow the contraction, be with the contraction. This is how we birth new things, as we allow for the contraction to get to the expansion. But I started to feel this different iteration of that. Like, no, 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 no. The expansion is right now. It's not on the other side of this. The expansion is here in this moment, and how we choose to show up for it and move through it. And the way we're choosing to show up for this, I'm truly so proud of us. And so it really set me on this path. And I remember coming into a call with my mentor and saying, wait, it's just expansion on expansion on expansion. So what I'm starting to put into words, and the perspective that I hold that has been serving me so well, is that even when I'm feeling something so deeply challenging, like I might feel sadness or anger or rage or despair or frustration, when I can simultaneously zoom out and be the witness of myself and remember the higher truth. So there's one truth of that my human is feeling a certain way, but there's another truth. When I see above the situation, the ultimate truth is everything is perfect as it needs to be, is all working beautifully. It's all happening for me, that this is here for me. When I can hold those two at the same time, my frequency doesn't drop. It's actually expanded. And we think of like, we hear this idea of we have to be high vibration. that we have to be happy all the time, but actually it is next level mastery to be going through something deeply challenging and to hold the true perspective that this is here for me. And the capacity to be with that will fly you so high up the frequency scale. I don't even know what else to say. It's like when you can hold the truth while being in the human experience as well, it's ultimate power.
It is absolutely ultimate power. I mean, the way that you live this, embody this, and came to this and experienced it and now teach it, it's so beautifully and powerfully said, because I love that acknowledgement that the expansion is nonstop. I think a lot of times when we're growing and, especially with so many people, quote unquote, stepping into their spiritual awakening, and really it's just a homecoming, right? It's not a new thing. It's them, an old thing. It's a remembering. Everyone has this sort of feeling of like, oh, next level, like they're in a video game where they get next level,
Yeah.
next level, next level, right?
Yeah.
And so the power isn't in this like ascension process, it's in this embodying process. I love that you acknowledge as wow, that when we step into the truth and rise up in those high level perspectives, our soul yearns for these challenges and these situations to have the experience to get to really step fully into ourselves and expand that light and expand in ways that we didn't even know were possible. I mean, I would imagine you didn't even know that that was possible before this experience.
Not in that way. I didn't know it in that way because, one of my biggest fears is losing someone I really love. And we did end up, receiving this gorgeous miracle, and my dad is still alive, and it was quite the road. But it was like facing him on his deathbed. It really was. And it was still immense love. And feeling the immense love in the face of your biggest fears, really quite something.
Yeah. And taking that conversation lens back towards our relationships and partnerships, and something that I've experienced and found so much fulfillment in is even in relationships that are so brutal and so challenging and so hard, and where you hurt one another so deeply, even in relationships that I've experienced with abuse and my abusers, to not necessarily just bypass or wash away or say, okay, well, I forgive it, I let it go. Not at all in that interpretation of this, but to shift the lens and perspective and to see the love of each side of those stories and what each of those experiences gave us. It has burst my love capacity open so big. And also my ability to hold the space for empowerment of others to
Mhm.
really go through anything in life and
Mhm.
realize that you have the ability to
Mhm.
shift the lens and alchemize it. And that is
Mhm.
not a bypassing, it's a
Mhm.
return of your power. It's an empowerment and a
Mhm.
callback and an honoring of why those people were attracted into your lives in the first place.
Yeah. And I do want to speak to this piece because I'm really moving. I feel at this part of my journey, I'm really interested in the conversation around, okay, so we know how to be with pain and not to bypass the pain. How well do we know how to be with pleasure and
Yes.
joy,
Yes.
happiness? And like how
Oh
long can
man.
we that feeling before cutting it off? And so I also want to open up that, we often talk about going through this hard thing, getting through this monster like in a video game, right? Like when you win the fight with the big monster at the end of the level gets you to your next level, but I also want to invite the possibility that expanding your capacity to sustain joy, I want to believe that clicks you into your next level at an accelerated pace. And it is something I feel ready for. And I see my clients feeling ready for. Like, what if we didn't have to just overcome one obstacle after another to deepen into our experience and to ascend, quote unquote, but actually, can I just allow my body to feel safe in joy. And it sounds so funny because most people think that's what they want, but notice how quickly you cut yourself off from it.
So, funny story to tie back into this is when I stepped into a potential for deep love, not a fully developed deep love, but a potential for deep love in a relationship. You would have thought I was entering a terrible abusive relationship the way my body responded. It was,
Exactly.
I went into absolute shock. I was having panic attacks, and I don't even have panic attacks. It's like I was having to reset my system to receive pleasure and goodness and safety, because that was more traumatic and like fearful and like triggering to my body than being in places of challenge and of difficulty.
Exactly.
And that's a beautiful thing to call in. Like, I love that you opened that conversation. So what are ways that you feel are really empowering to kind of open that doorway? I know what I went through. I think there's probably an easier way now that I realize what I was talking.
Well, it really does depend on where you are, where you are, what your set point is in your body, what you've experienced, what your perception is of the things you have experienced. But I have been really indulging myself in a whole lot of dancing.
Yes. Okay.
And just feeling my body, first of all, feeling my body for like period, right? Just I could end right there. But feeling my body liberated, unshackled, uh, humming, buzzing, feeling the life force moving through me. And like I play these kind of games with myself, like, how long can I feel this for? How long can I ride this wave? And like letting yourself be truly ravished by life and like in your rapture, letting yourself be more intentional to feel the sunshine and the miracle of this sun that appears every single day. And, taking in a moment to like really feel the gratitude into your body and let it turn you on, and getting into pleasure practices, whether it's just massaging your body with oil or it's getting more into, your sexuality, and like, I want to say slowing it down and feeling yourself and like indulging yourself, playing little games. Like I went shopping last week and I was just playing a game with myself. Like, what if I allowed myself to purchase everything that I liked in this store? It's not a huge store. And I didn't look at, like, I didn't do any kind of math. I didn't do any kind of like calculating what this will come to, but really trusting that if it really makes me feel amazing, that it's for me. And I was sharing this in one of my self-centered woman classes, because I was like, okay, the total came to $323 and 88 cents. And I said, the only thing that could have made it better was if it was $333 and 88. And one of the women in the group goes, actually 3 plus 2 plus 3 is 8. So your purchase was 888. And I'm like, oh, stop. Right. And like, but it sounds funny, but it's making a big deal out of things like that and intentionally looking for the magic in life and making everything magical. Like sometimes my husband will be like, yeah, but that's just like a coincidence. I'm like, to you, again, not to me, like different reality over here, and trusting it, and I don't mean to say like, oh, because I went shopping and didn't look at the price, I signed a new client. That's not it at all. But it was then feeling so incredible in my clothing the next day on the class and like feeling lit up by what I'm sharing. And then, of course, that being so magnetic and people signing up for my offerings and it all balancing it out, right? Like it's all balancing out. But can you trust your desire without cutting yourself off, and play with possibility? Like right now I'm sitting inside, and to me, this is all part of the pleasure paradigm because it's way beyond need. So I'm in a conversation with one of my mentors about, I'm already in her mastermind. It's like, well, what if I joined your highest level mastermind that I don't at all need? And just, she shares with me in the investment, and I'm like breathing through it and just letting it exist as a possibility that I don't just shut down just because it's illogical. I don't really need it. Like letting myself at least even play with that possibility. And to me, that's like being with pleasure. It's moving from needing to wanting and from wanting to desire.
I love this practice so much. Like now everybody listening is going to be like, great. I just got permission to go buy whatever I want in a store. No, but really it's
And I'm not someone who shops often, it's not like
yeah. All my shopaholics out there are like, yes, that was the
Exactly.
permission I was waiting for. Thank you. No, you guys know that's not what we were talking about. But there is something so incredible about this because how often do we completely shut down not only our desires because we're just like, oh, that's not possible, instead of just dancing in it and playing, or even with the pleasure, as you were talking about. I've noticed at different points and at different times, like even as my joy or excitement grows, it's almost like you hold your breath or like you just stop it. You don't want it to be too big. And that's crazy, right? Like it should be big. It should be celebrated and joyful and expressed and just reveled in. And so I love this whole conversation that you just took us through. And I think we're all sitting here taking notes about like, yes, dance, play, sensuality, touch, like
Yeah.
all the different components of like, what is your pleasure? How can
Yeah.
you expand it? And it is a practice.
It is. It is. Like I've set the intention that on Friday mornings it's like pleasure practice time. And I do tend to mean that more in terms of like getting into my womb space and, self pleasure. But today I wasn't feeling that was so accessible to me. And I am just like, finishing off my bleed. And so it was okay, but that doesn't mean I can't play at all. And so it's taking a shower and slowing down in the shower and then like using every kind of beautiful scent I own to like adorn myself. And sometimes, it's hard to make the space or want to even do it or even know how to slow down enough. But can you practice it like it is a muscle, right? And it's such a cliche, but like, can you take 5 minutes? Then can you take 10 minutes? And then can you extend that on another time and warm your way there, like build that capacity to be with your own touch, to be with your own gaze.
Yes. It's interesting tying this back to something that you talk about that I have experienced that I'm playing with as well, that really struck me when I heard you say this, is that our relationships tie directly to our wealth capacity as well. I mean, like our money, our business, like it's all connected to our relationship. And so this conversation wave of having to play in the pleasure, and that's about learning to receive your own pleasure, your own abilities and gifts, how
Mhm.
much of that is
Mhm.
directly impacted to how much you're willing to feel safe in letting yourself create and be seen and create in your business and wealth. It's
Yeah.
huge.
It's huge. It's like, we know the saying, God only gives us what we can handle. And we know that in the context of, God will only throw at us the hard things that, life knows won't kill us. But I also really believe this in the context of what's good. God will only give you what you can handle in terms of abundance, and
Yeah,
it's
when you said that, I was like, I heard that in what you were saying in the program. I'm like, I literally had to stop where I was standing because I was walking and listening and like, yes, fucking
yeah.
hell. Like you just like blew open. It's so, so, so true.
It's so true, and it's like, okay, well, everybody wants to welcome financial abundance on some level, even if they don't really wanna own up to it or aren't ready to own that yet. Isn't that desire tied to feeling, freedom and the spaciousness to be and to indulge in your pleasure? And so if you are not someone who can be with pleasure, then what is it that you are what is it that you think is coming with this money? Because what will come will just be more responsibility and sense of duty when you don't know how to open to pleasure. And you'll
Yeah.
just
And
have a new set point of what money, what your baseline money is, and then new stress about maintaining that.
1,000,000%. And I think I shared briefly with you that like I have been a person able to create a lot of wealth early on. And people would always say, how do you do this? I was very in my feminine masculine balance at the time that I was creating. As I heard so often, and that wasn't the only reason I stepped away, but I did hear so often, well, that's not how it's supposed to work. You're not supposed to be able to manifest that much. And I thought, oh gosh, maybe there's a better way to do this. Maybe I'm not doing it the right way. And so I leaned more into the more masculine approach, the hustle culture of doing things. And at the same time was dealing with tremendous challenge in my life. And that really froze me into that
Mm.
more that old paradigm of, the masculine, the hustle, the kill ourselves, the burnout state. And I remember going through this phase and I asked God for this. I asked the universe, I'm like, okay, I really want to understand the way other people do things. Like I need to know kind of what's happening here. I felt a calling
Mhm.
to understand the way
Mhm.
the world exists because clearly I was doing it in a way that was like completely natural and
Mhm.
authentic and intuitive. And that was not the
Mhm.
way the rest of the world was existing at that
Mhm.
time. And I was partway through this quest and I would be like, okay, I'm done. This sucks. I'm so done. I'm ready. I'm ready to exit. But it was like forcing me to create wealth and
Mhm.
power and abundance through very hard external
Mhm.
containers
Mhm.
and masculine
Mhm.
spaces that were never ending. It was never nourishing. It never felt enough. It never felt like it could
Mhm.
end. It couldn't sustain or support itself. So it was constantly bleeding through more energy. And our
Mhm.
feminine, we innately and intuitively know we're the portals of the universe.
Mhm.
Whether we birth our children, we are
Mhm.
birth creators. And so with that, when we tap into the magnetism and intuition of our feminine nature, and men can do this too,
Mhm.
the flow and the power of wealth that we create through that space
Mhm.
is so much more
Mhm.
massive and potent and requires so much less effort. And it's
Mhm.
soul nourishing. And that's
Mhm.
what we all crave and that's what we desire. And that's why we're birthing a new paradigm of the way of doing things and why we're being called to return to our feminine awakening because we
Mhm.
know something is not right in the way
Mhm.
things, it's amok. It's not right. And we know it. And we're like, this is ridiculous. This is bullshit.
Mhm.
We're burnt
Mhm.
out thinking we're not enough. And really, it's because we've lost that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. How gorgeous.
I feel like there are so many different spaces and places that we could continue onward, but just mindful of timing. And, now having talked about our sacred feminine, I want to kind of start to wrap up this
Mhm.
beautiful,
Mhm.
activating conversation that I hope everyone listening that you can set the intention, maybe even go back and listen through and set the intention to allow this work, this words, this frequency that Diana shares. It is powerfully potent activation. Her words, her codes that comes through, it activates on such a deep, soulful, sacred level. And so just receive that as you're listening to this conversation, receive it in the words and also in the frequency and listen back as many times as you would like. But so in sharing a wrap up of this conversation with what we're talking about, our sacred femininity, stepping into this creative space, I think a lot of times as women, particularly, we have this sense of feeling that us stepping into our sacred feminine is like it's our creative, our spark, our capacity for our wealth, our love, our sovereignty, that this is we feel that it's somehow if we take full ownership of ourselves, of what's
Mhm.
true to us, that it's somehow at the cost of someone else. Can
Mhm.
you like share your thoughts and your like
Yeah.
intuit on this?
Well, I do think part of that is linked to history, right? And this sort of like waiting to be chosen for to be married off, right? And that was your way of surviving or thriving in any way was to be a suitable wife and married off and then therefore taken care of financially, right? And so I think there is this memory in our bodies of knowing that that might have meant leaving a sister behind who wasn't as beautiful or wasn't as I don't know, whatever, fresh in some kind of way to be chosen, right? And I think there is a definite fear, like I've come across my own witch wound. I remember one of my mentors asking me if she could celebrate this big financial win for me. And this was in 2021. And I was truly and deeply terrified of being seen in my excellence, in my brilliance. I think there is sometimes this fear of being not enough and being too much, all wrapped up in one, right? Like
Yes.
to someone, this is too much, and to someone else, it's not enough. And damned if I do, and damned if I don't. And it's really, we are doing the really brave work of walking a new path of I am me, and it might be too much for you or not enough for you, but I am me, and I am choosing that that is exactly what it needs to be, and exactly why I'm here on this earth at this time is just to be whatever that it is. And the truth is, like, if I even said those exact words 2 years ago, and then I'll say it again in 2 years, and it will mean something else, because who I am just continues to show itself to me as I give myself permission to first and foremost let myself see who I am and let others see it, right? But when we really look at it from the most logical place, it's like, if I make a lot of money, let's say, in which reality does that mean you cannot? Actually, what it ends up meaning is my power, my influence, my ripple effect, my overflow just has wider reach. And that whatever, whatever I'm expanding into, when you are in close proximity to me, you receive that, right?
Yes.
And as I receive from others, and we all just, hold each other as we walk on this path. And I think a big shift that I'm seeing that I really am enjoying is the fall of hierarchy, even in mentorship or coaching, like the fall of kind of the guru paradigm, and more of we're walking shoulder to shoulder. And so for myself anyway, the more I can own that I really am not beneath my mentors nor above my clients, but we are shoulder to shoulder, the more I really own the responsibility in a healthy way. It's like the more I can own the responsibility to keep expanding, because it's my expansion is your expansion, and your expansion is mine. And it's like this divine knowing that it's not up to me to close the tap,
Mhm.
limit myself in any way. And for me, that's just been it. And when I'm giving myself permission, and I have now so much evidence, but it required first to move before the evidence was there, the more I give myself permission to really be seen and to thrive and to be seen in my thriving. Like, I remember having this big breakthrough. I was like, I'm really good at being transparent when things are hard. Like, I'm happy to write a post online about this hardship I just went through and how I moved through it. But what I really find challenging is celebrating myself and
Mhm.
letting myself be seen in my celebration. But what
Mhm.
I'm now receiving evidence of is the more I allow the celebration, the more I allow myself to thrive, the more the people in my world are expanding with me, because it's permission for them to.
That was like the most beautiful download and channel. And I like thought process, like, just watching you go through this. Yes, that's what I'm just going to say. Yes. And I encourage everyone listening to even rewind, listen again, take that in, because this is something that we can so deeply heal. And it gives us safety and permission to come together in community, to understand the power of those that we have around us, to share in our joys, our celebrations, and not just our struggles, but also be transparent about those as well. I know I'm opposite. I tend to hide the struggles and share the successes, but there's power and healing and growth in all of those places. And as you said, it's not our place to turn off the faucet. It's not our place to dim the light, the gifts of who we came to be, of the expression that we chose to embody. And we're just feeling the contraction of old conditioning in our world that's here to come apart. And we are here to step forward and change it. And the only way to do that is to sort of put on the blinders, so to speak, of what's happening outside in that limitation and give it permission
Mm,
to shift. And we do
mhm.
that more easily when we come together in community. And that's
We do.
actually such a beautiful segue, because
Mhm.
I want you to get to share about your powerful
Yeah.
community and all
Yeah.
of your offerings. But before you do that, I just want to pause and say thank you. It is an honor to receive from you and to be in space, because we do activate one another. And I can tell you guys listening, the activations that I've received since coming even into proximity with this woman are beyond words at this moment. I will be able to articulate and find words, but I know the depths of the shifts that have occurred in my life, even in the brief time of getting to connect with you. And I know that that only grows stronger and deeper. And so I fully encourage you to connect with Diana and share with us, please, how can everyone connect with you?
Well, thank you for mentioning my community because I feel so honored and excited about this, like owning of it is a community and the community is growing and it's vibrant and alive. And it's a community of women who are owning that they are the center of their universe. And from that place, all their overflow pours onto others. And it's this movement of being a relaxed woman and a relaxed receiver in your relationships. And so I'm so truly just grateful to be like a steward of this movement and of this medicine. And so a fun, like, always Instagram is a great place to follow along with what I'm up to and what I'm celebrating and what I'm moving through. And so that's my name with an underscore at the end, Diana Eskander _.
And I'll put all of this as well in the show notes.
Yeah.
So everyone
Thank
listening, you can
you.
just pop on in the show notes and find the
Thank
links.
you. A great place if you want to just tap into the magic and the medicine and the message would be the Self-Centered Woman Masterclass, the 4-part masterclass.
Which is powerful. It's so amazing.
It is. And so we will be publishing it on my website for $18.88. But if you just get in touch with me, we will send you the link to get it at the current price, which is $144.
Oh my goodness, you guys. Like, holy moly, Diana. That is the most beautiful gift. The most beautiful gift. You guys, you have to get this. I'm telling you, I have listened through, I'm only even partway through, and I'm paused and I'm integrating and I'm like asking myself the questions, pausing to reflect on what you're sharing because I can feel the medicine is so potent that's coming through.
Yeah, and I really felt it too. And that's why I say, like, if you want to just get to know what my world is about and what this work is about, it would be a great place to begin and a really, really powerful initiation into the work. We have a membership that is open right now. It's called the Soul Collective. And so if you enjoy these teachings, my teachings drop in there. We have some coaching time together as well. Really the space that I am so excited to keep growing and nurturing and pouring my heart and soul into is the portal of love. The tagline for that is a 12-month journey to being the woman who feels safety within and safety with him. And the safety with him is really with money and God. It is really where the community really thrives. And we have an abundance of coaching time together. We have our entire School of Love Vault, every single program and masterclass I've ever created. I mean, I can't even get into everything that's included because it is so abundant. But the journey is really like, you don't need to walk this alone. We get to walk this journey together. You get to be in the coding and in the movement of a relaxed woman, a relaxed receiver, playing with feminine, masculine polarity, really owning your sovereignty, embodying love as a frequency. It's like it's all in this space. It's such an abundant space. And so we are in open enrollment season right now. And since I know the episode is dropping next week,
Yes.
the price rises on the portal on 11/11, midnight 11/11. So just get in touch with me if it's something you want to explore, and I'll send over an application and you can just flirt with possibility and play with possibility. And I really encourage everyone to always do that if there's something that calls to you, even if it's not going to be the thing for you in the end, or it's not the time or place, like an invitation to be the person who dreams and plays and doesn't always just look at the price tag as the first thing, right? And to let the
Yes.
soul speak and let yourself expand even through the application, even if that's where it ends for now. So maybe we can link the portal of love and the applications on that
Absolutely.
page. And you
Yeah,
can keep in
that will
touch.
be linked below that you guys can check out and easy find that application. And that's such a beautiful, just full, perfect little bow to our conversation because it really is about dancing and playing and all of these. We do that most of us as children.
Yeah.
And it's where we dreamscape and then we lose touch with that and we think it's silly. But there is something so magnetic. And how many times have we dreamed up something and even thought, well, maybe. And
Yeah.
then the whole thing just unlocks and starts creating, because that maybe is actually an intention. And that plate is an intention seed. And with those intention seeds, you're planting that frequency into the universe and letting the whole entire universe conspire to bring that together for you. So it's
Yeah.
powerful. Oh my goodness. My sister, thank you so much for being
Thank you
here.
so much.
It is such an honor. Everyone, reach out with Diana, connect to her, join, jump into all of her spaces. You will thank me. And then share with me as well. I want to hear your transformations and your shifts. And share with us too. What did you take away? What landed for you with this conversation? Get in touch. Send us DMs. Send us voice notes. We want to hear. So thank you so much.
Thank you so
Much,
much.
much love.